coming up on this episode of Free Lunch.
If you feel fear and anxiety rising, it does not mean success is far away. It means success is upon you. There's someone out there who's looking for exactly what I am creating. Mm-hmm. You could be guaranteed you won't win a thing if you don't submit. Mm-hmm. Submitting should be celebrated. How great of a husband could I be that's spiritually dead or depressed? How great or happy or enjoyable of a dad can I be? What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Freestyle Gospel, a.k.a. The Real Free, with another episode of Free Lunch, free food for your soul. That's right. I got my mans here today, Mr. Aaron Johnson. Give it up for Aaron Johnson.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on here, Free.
Absolutely.
Look at that crowd. I like that. I like that.
That crowd is amazing.
I like that a lot.
Let's hit the crowd.
I said keep going. I appreciate that. Give a hand for this man, too. I like that.
All right. Settle down. Rambunctious audience at times. So, quick, I'll give my man Aaron a chance to introduce himself and, a little bit about who he is, what he does. But real quick, just a snippet of how I cross paths with AJ was, doing some of the more of the voiceover work that I actually want to be able to do more now since I have the studio space. But organization that he works for allowed me to do some voiceover work for a project of theirs. And while doing it, it was like one of those things where, Aaron was in charge of, doing the writing. And me being a writer, you guys know, as a lyricist, a poet, author, whatever, I enjoy good writing, and I can spot an amazing writer. And I can remember, Aaron got a kick out of this, but we would have so many recording sessions of me reading his script that he would write and me laughing because I was just amazed at how awesome this writing was. I was like, dude, this is insane. This is excellent writing. And for me, I feel like, finding excellent writers is not as common as you would like it to be, So if you are an excellent writer, I think you also enjoy and appreciate other excellent writers when you see one or come across one. So without any further ado, I'm sure there's probably other things you do besides just writing or whatever, but tell the people about yourself, Aaron.
Nah, most definitely, Free, and appreciate all that love for the writing. Your check's in the mail. Don't worry about that. But nah, seriously, Free and I kind of crossed paths the first time I ever saw him, I'll say this. First time I ever saw him was during a Hype for Harvest at Cornerstone Christian Center in Milford.
And for those who don't know, Hype for Harvest is a really cool concert for young adults and people at the local church.
No, and it was great.
Yeah.
My girlfriend and her sister, her family are all members there. And we went and Free performed on stage and I remember coming away from that and being like, yo, I don't know who that dude was, but he was fire. I remember saying that to my girlfriend. I said, I don't know who that was, but he was dope. And so, fast forward a couple years later, we're working for I work for the Narrative Project, Connecticut's first and only anti-racist public relations agency here in New Haven. And we were working on a project with one of our other partners. They were doing a podcast for an exhibition that was coming up. And we were looking for someone that could be the narrator for it. Now, the whole presentation, the whole art gallery was set to really show off New Haven. So one of the instructions were we wanted to find someone from New Haven that had roots here that was going to be able to go into it with that as a backdrop. And one of my other coworkers, a mutual friend of ours who I work with, mentioned, he was like, "What about, you ever heard of The Real Free?" And I was just like, "Nah, I never heard of him." And then as soon as the picture came out, I was like, "Yo, that's the guy. That's the guy from." And I know that guy. And so, hit Free up. He loved the idea. We got to working, and I said those sessions that we had, I believe it was a 6-episode podcast series. Everywhere in Here was the name of the series. You want to go back and check it out. But putting that together and you know, I was doing the writing, I was doing the editing, I was doing like the production on everything, and putting that together with you was like a great experience because especially on the back end there was some stuff that was going on that, you know, I'm not going to get into, but like on the front end working with you was fantastic. It really was like getting an opportunity to see how you work, how the way that you use words to paint such a vivid picture. It was awesome. So that's how we crossed paths. I mean, other than that, I'm just a kid from Stratford, bro.
No, well, like has writing always been a thing for you prior to like the narrative project?
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
That's been like your thing for like a long time.
Yeah.
Just with other companies. That's the only thing changing.
Yeah, no. So my background's in journalism. I went to Southern over here in New Haven, graduated with my journalism degree, worked at the Connecticut Post, worked at the Westport News, worked at CPTV Sports, big sports guy, worked at a Republican American in Waterbury for a little while. And then you know, I even transitioned into radio. That's where, you know, a lot of the experience came
I remember you told me
for the podcast. So I transitioned into radio. I worked at Connoisseur Media for about a year and a half before the pandemic. I would honestly still be working there if it wasn't for the pandemic. So it's crazy how, you know, how things start to work and how to operate.
Yes, indeed.
So yeah, I was working there until the pandemic hit, was part of a round of layoffs, unfortunately. And then, you know, I wasn't working for a little while. I really wasn't. I was tough. I was out of work for about 5 or 6 months. During like the midst of the pandemic, and then I got plucked from obscurity, I like to say, by my boss, Mercy Quay. She picked me up, dropped me off, and then I've been going with the narrative project ever since. I remember having a conversation with my pops when I could have been maybe like in grade school. I had to be in middle school or something. My sister, she went to Colby Cathedral down in Bridgeport. They was doing something at the Sheehan Center down in Bridgeport, and we was waiting in the parking lot for her. And my dad said to me, he was like, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" I might have been, like I said, I might have been in middle school, but he was like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And of course, me being the athlete I was like, "Oh, center field for the Yankees. That's easy. You know, I got to take over Bernie Williams' spot." That was the first, like, exactly. Just shrugged at him. I'm like, "Come on, center field for the Yankees. That's done.
Yeah,
that's been done for years." And he looked at me, said, "That's well and good, but just in case that doesn't work."
Just in case.
Hey, that's a good one. I got a hilarious story to tell you about that song.
Just in case. That's gonna be my next sound button right there.
So we started talking again, and my father's a retired firefighter, and so I said, "Well, I could be a firefighter like you." He was like, "Yeah, I understand, and it's a good profession, but you don't have to follow the path that I have. What do you want to do?"
You didn't hit him with the, "Well, I wasn't trying to follow your path. I was trying to be a baseball player."
You know, I honestly should have. It might have gotten my behind whooped, but I should have absolutely said that. No, but we got to talking, and then he said to me, he was like, "Well, you ever thought about sports writing?" And I remember going like, "What's that?" He's like, "You get paid to write about sports." And I just was like, they do that? You can get paid for that?
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, go to the games and do all that stuff." And immediately in that moment, I said, I can remember where we were. In that moment, I was like, if I'm not center field for the Yankees, I'm going to be a writer.
I'll be a writer for the Yankees.
Exactly. Writer for the Yankees, writer for the NFL. Writer. That's really where the belief of it started. And I think my dad even brought that up because my parents I must have been in like 7th grade or something, but my parents had gone to my teacher earlier in that year. And I remember, I think my teacher's name Miss Lutz, but she had gone to my parents, called them in and said, you know, we had a creative writing course, a creative writing project, and Aaron did really well on it. His story was very, very well written. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, dude, I watch a lot of cartoons. I got a vivid imagination. I just want to run with it. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where it started. So I even, talking to my father years later, he brought that up himself. And he was like, that's kind of where the nugget in my ear came in. And so he put that in, you know, we had that conversation off of that. Like I said, it was either going to be number 11 coming up to bat at Yankee Stadium, or it was going to be me being a writer.
So is that like fast forward to now, like the work that you do obviously for the narrative project is very like commendable. It's has a great mission, but is that that type of writing, is that your passion, or do you still on the side, along with your vocational career, dabble in what is actually your passion and like still nurture that? Like what's actually your passion?
My passion is definitely still more of the creative writing, sports writing, non-fiction writing kind of side. Like, I mean, for my job, it is public relations has a very specific format
Yeah,
in a lot of
exactly.
ways, and so you're kind of
It's not really wiggle room there.
No, there's not. Like you can kind of do some fun stuff, but if it starts getting a little bit too flashy, the partners or the client, they'll say like, oh well, let's tone this back a little bit. A lot of my stuff on the back end comes with, and I said I'm a sports aficionado. I love sports, you know this, and so like I've been doing writing on the side with my own YouTube. I've done my own my own podcast where I do some writing in that. And
now you're still doing the podcast, right? Because at least I've come across some clips.
Clips, that's a new thing I've been. So it's a subset off of the podcast because I started my podcast prior to the pandemic, and then once the pandemic hit and things were crazy, sports stopped. I didn't know how it was gonna go, so I adjusted once I got settled, got in my new position, and got my life right. And I said, and this is coming off a conversation I had with a buddy of mine, where it was like, sometimes sports. First of all, there's so many sports podcasts out there that it's hard to stand out, especially from the professional side. It's hard to stand out. So I wanted to do something that was able to not only showcase the things that I know and the ability that I have when it comes to writing and talking about whether it's sports or something else, but I also wanted to do it in a way that I didn't lose my own personality. And I wanted to have fun with it. And I wanted to, I'm a big dude, but I love to have fun. I love to crack jokes, love to laugh. And so I decided to make kind of like a short form John Oliver Daily Show style show, but with sports. And so when I first started doing it, I was like, this is a great idea. And it didn't even dawn on me the amount of writing I could do with this. And it was just kind of like another way. I was like, okay, I can talk about sports. I'll talk about the hot stuff that's going on. And so I took the same podcast name I had been using, Degree of Difficulty, and just transformed that into a YouTube channel, YouTube show right now. And it's about 5-6 minute clips a pop, but I get to sit down and do the writing, write the jokes, create the picture, create the scene, be able to kind of pop things in and out when it comes to, writing up a script. And it's fun to do. And then if that's to scratch the itch if I have about literal what's going on in the world of sports writing. But when I get the itch to do something like writing fiction, I love writing fiction. Because it creates that picture where, like I said before, I watched way too much TV as a kid. It was sports and cartoons.
We all
watched way too much TV as a kid, but what it really did was it gave me a sense of imagination, a sense of wonder, a sense of creation. And one of the things that I've always stood by, and I'm going to write a book one day, and I just need the time to write a book. I'm going to write a book one day, and it's not going to be about a historical nonfiction book. I want to write a fiction book because, and this was going back to something I had talked to a couple people about over the past couple of years, is like there's not a lot of I remember the first time I sat down on a Saturday morning and watched Static Shock. And the reason why I remember sitting down Saturday morning watching Static Shock was because that was one of the first times I saw a superhero that looked like me. And the importance of that, the importance of saying like, dude, he got dreads. I don't got dreads, but like he got dreads. Like he's talking the vernacular that I'm talking. He's hanging out with his friends the way I'm hanging out with my friends.
So I mean, but with all that kind of like creativity and vision going in your head, like even with just like the eventual at some point fictional book. How? And I just know a glimpse, like just the icing on the cake or like the tip of the iceberg of how busy your field of current writing that you have to do. So I can only imagine what it's like really actually like. But with all that going on presently on a day-to-day, and then you having such a wealth of like vision and creativity, like project or what you wish to be able to do going on inside your head, like how do you, I don't want to say like quell that, right? Because we don't want to do that. How do you make peace with it on a day-to-day? Like, do you get because obviously if you do some of the 5-6 minute clips with the whole sports thing, right? That kind of lets like, it's almost like bloodletting, right?
Yeah, it's exactly what it is.
I let a little bit of my creativity breathe and I do this, but that's not actually like the book that I want to do. That's not actually like this other idea that I have. Like, so then I have to go and punch this clock. I'm here to this late at night on this day, 5-6 days a week, whatever it is. Like, what's your strategy for, kind of appeasing, I guess, the burning vision and the creativity that's stirring on the inside and making peace just daily?
It's tough. I'm not going to lie to you and say it's not tough. It is tough because, and I'm even thinking about the stuff I have to, go back home and do for work after we get done here because
work is not done. Although I punched up.
It's true because it's funny the way that you were talking about, like, and this is gonna be a funny visual, but the bloodletting, because it is. The sports thing really is kind of like that, just scratching that itch, even if you can't get it all the way. When it comes to finding the time, because you got to balance it. It is just a balance. You got to balance it out. But for me, the difficulty comes in with my creativity when I write comes from such a spontaneous place sometimes. Like, I'll just get the urge right then, and I'll just like, oh, I wish I could do this, but now I'm at work. Or it's like, I just got home from work. I still got to cook dinner.
You got to keep the running iPhone notepad.
Dude, you don't want to look at my iPhone notepad. I was in the city.
How many notes do you have in your notepad? Roughly. You had to estimate.
116 or 161, somewhere in that
160?
Somewhere in that ballpark.
I have 1,000 plus.
Oh yeah, no, you got me beat by a while,
dude. That's because I'm going through exactly what you can't help when inspiration hits.
It's spontaneous from the way that the way it hits me is so funny. So we were in New York over the holidays. My girlfriend's grandmother lives out in Brooklyn, so we were out there, and it was her birthday. So we went out that night of her birthday, just me, her siblings, and everything. And we were sitting outside waiting to get into one of the places we were going. And I just was looking at a fire escape. And I kid you not, it was the randomest thing. I was looking at a fire escape, and all of a sudden the phone just whipped right out and do. And the funny thing was, I just got an image of a scene that I want to put in the book, where it's like, like I said, there's something about like fantasy and joy and everything with having, like I said, black characters in it, and just like the image of like something going on up in an apartment building in New York City, and now the main character's running down a fire escape with something chasing him behind, and I'm running through this on my head, and I'm like, all right, so if he goes,
you're
down
watching
that way,
the movie,
as it's going in my mind, and it was so funny. My girlfriend's youngest sister came over to me, and she was just like, "What are you doing?" Because she just saw me just going do, and I would look up and then do.
You're being weird again, Aaron.
Exactly. Oh, you don't know.
Stop it.
As a good friend once told me when we were in high school, being normal's overrated. No, being normal's overrated. It is.
Stop being weird, Aaron.
It is so much fun to be able to create in a way that, like I said, it is tough to be able to like juggle it all. It is. It can be frustrating. It can be tough because there are certain times where you will have that inspiration and you can't, because a lot of my writing gets done at night, and like I'll write a full like 3,500 words. There it is. 3,500 words. 5,000 words. Look up and it's 3 a.m. and I got to get up in like 4 hours. And I'm just like, well, this wasn't a smart idea.
Bro, so that happened to me last night.
It's tough.
This morning I went to sleep at 3 a.m. Yeah.
And so, I think that's one of the biggest things that, for me, I've tried to juggle and I've tried to learn, even over the years. It was easier when I was in college because, I had a little bit more free time, so I had a little bit more downtime. So if I had inspiration, I would be able to write something.
Now, does that, like, when you are... Because I know a lot of people who, listen to this podcast are creatives. If I'm, if I had to guess, probably 80%.
Nice.
So I know this is a common thing that many creatives struggle with is, trying to find the balance, right? Because, let's face it, we live in the real world where, there's rent due.
I was going to say bills are a thing.
Yeah, like that's actually a real thing in real life. Bills are totally nonfiction. So, I think, many people, look to find affinity with others. Like, okay, is this just like unique to me? Is this my misery? Like, or is this other people deal with this? Okay, other people navigate this. This is a thing. All right. And then now, like, how do I be okay? Right now, like, okay can mean one of two things. How do I become okay and just do away with this fantasy and, dream of mine? Or how do I become quote unquote okay and successfully fulfill the dream along the way while taking care of myself, making sure, I'm keeping the job. Some people would actually argue that there can never truly be any real communion between the two. There can never, something always is taking a back seat, someone would say. is that, listen, there's never going to be a 50-50 balance, right? Either the vision, the passion is going to eat at you 60% or 70%, and then, whatever's left, that'll go to the full-time or part-time gig job you got, just to have the health insurance, let's say. Or it'll be reverse, the job will be, you lifting, pushing boxes or checking people out at the cash register, bagging groceries will be the 70-80%. And then the 20% of you that's left that stays up till 2 a.m. because that's all you had left in your day to chase the dream and the passion. Some would say it goes that way. What do you say to that? Do you think there can ever actually be a 50-50 balance?
To be honest with you, I don't think there can be. I think in my experiences, I'll say in my experiences like this, I would definitely fall under the bucket of the latter that you were saying, where it's like 75-80% of my time will go to my job. I went to college. I got student loans out the wazoo. Yeah. Like I got to pay some stuff. Yeah. So when I have the time, I can look back and say, okay, I have the time. Now I have the inspiration, the time, and now I'm ready to rock and roll. Now I look at, my significant other, my girlfriend, I talk about a lot. She runs her own design business, and that is her passion. Not saying, writing's not mine, but that is her passion. And the way that I've seen her go from the hesitancy of, should I stop doing my job, my full-time job to pursue this? I don't know what to do, praying on it, not knowing what her next steps were going to be, making sure aligning what she wants to do. And the thing that I saw with her was that no matter what it was that she was feeling, the biggest thing that won out was that passion, that fire. It just never burned out. It never went away. It was always something that she just knew she had to do. And so here we are 3 years later. Her business is still going great. She's been able to do that while also cutting back from her other job because, one, her job has allowed her to do that. Yeah. Pandemic helped a little bit with that. But also just for the fact that, her and I were having this conversation a couple of weeks ago where it was like, she has a vision for herself. She has a vision for, where the business is going to go, where she sees her vision. And that passion and that fire constantly is getting relit, constantly, whether it's the small, I get inspiration from one thing and I'm like, all right, cool, that's a chapter. I want to do it. She gets inspiration from walking in a room and so it's like, all right, cool. So I'm going to just change all of this in here. I'm going to design this. This is going to go over there. And it changes so much that her passion never goes away. No matter what's changing in her life is what I mean. Her passion never goes away. So I think if you're
do you say that to suggest yours is not as similar as hers in that way? It kind of goes in and out at sometimes?
It's not that it goes in and out. I just think that my priorities get shuffled in a way that I don't think hers do. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean like I said, I look at it from the standpoint of I got all these, like you said, it's adulting. I got bills, I got this, I got that, I got that. And I start to look at it and be like, oh, wow, there's all this stuff. Yeah. And it's like, all right, let me take a break from this and let me write because it gets my mind right. It's enjoyable. I want to create something. It's the way that stuff is starting to flow off of my fingertips as I'm typing. It's perfect. Yeah. For her, there's nothing else other than the business. It's a vision. It's such a focus. It sounds like I should have brought her on the show instead of you two. I mean, hey. No, I'm joking. But no, it's funny because
I'd love to have her on by the way.
No, absolutely.
Real plug.
It's funny because the way that I look at my own passions and the way that I understand what I love to do and the way that I look at my responsibilities and say hey, look, this is unfortunately something that might end up taking a back seat. That's something I'm going to have to live with, right? That's something I'm going to have to make a decision. That's a decision that some people have to make. It's a tough decision. It's not a fun one. And there's times where I look at it, I'm like, I don't want to make this decision. I want to be able to, I want to be able to just take a couple. And what I end up doing in that time is, I'll take time off of work just to write. I'll take time off of work just to devote myself to this craft because I need to. It's like it gets to a certain point.
It's spiritual suicide if you don't.
Oh, absolutely. I can agree with that absolutely because I think one of the things, and even just talking with you right here, is that part of writing for me, and that's why I loved our project so much, because part of writing for me is really for lack of a better analogy, chicken soup for the soul. It really feeds my soul in a way that is so I get done with like a long day of work and you're tired and this and you feel like you're down. And then I get sparked by some inspiration. I'm like, I'm going to flip this open here and just start typing away and start creating a story. All right, let's see. We're going to see what Miles is up to today. Yeah. And we start writing this out.
Definitely. And I mean, that's what takes the nights to 3 a.m. for me.
Yes.
Because it's not that the physical body is not tired.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm legit tired. Mm-hmm. But when I have my head in that zone and I'm creating, it is the most alive that I feel in the day. Like you can't put it into terms almost at times, right? The irony to be such a wordsmith that I am, like I just can't find the words to explain it. Like and I've had my wife, turn over many times at the middle of the night and go, "You're still up? What are you doing?" And she'll say, "You just said like when we went to bed that how tired you were." And I'd be like, "Yeah, I was." And then I was just staring up at the ceiling, and then this idea came to me, and then it's like I have to go to it.
It's so funny that you brought that up because that just happened to me on Sunday. So as I'm getting ready to do the sports writing, and again, it's a different form of writing, but it's still a creative form of writing, which I love. But I was doing the last video I did was about the situation with Brian Flores and all the stuff he was doing in the NFL. And I usually like to do the writing for that well in advance. I usually do the writing. I'm done with the writing and editing by like Thursday or Friday. I record on Saturday morning. I post it by Saturday afternoon. Okay, and it goes out. That's usually my process for that.
Yeah,
dude, I was racking my brain trying to find something creative for this and trying to make it funny because it's such a serious topic. Trying to find something that even just gets me into that normal cadence, normal flow that I do, where it's I love being able to have that, like I said, lightheartedness while also taking this. Yeah. I was racking my brain. I couldn't think of anything. And I kid you not, it was Saturday night around it had to be like maybe 11 o'clock, midnight. And I sat back and I said, and literally ding. And I was just like, Yoop. And I sat up till 3 a.m. typing. And that's why I was laughing because you said when your wife turned over,
your girlfriend turned over,
looked at me, she said, "What are you doing?" And I was just like, I'm still up because I couldn't think of it until that point. And then when the inspiration hit, I was able to, I did the whole, I was roadblocked in a serious way.
Yeah, you could bang the whole thing out one shot now.
Oh, it was done. I did the whole thing out one day, got up next morning, went home, recorded the whole thing in one take, edited it up, and it was up literally that day.
Wow.
So it's
amazing.
Inspiration for me comes from so many different places that it is something that I really lean on when I'm trying to create.
Yeah.
Because I don't often get the time to create like I would like to. And when I do, sometimes it can get to that stagnant point where I'm like, man, because now you're trying to force it out. Yeah. That's how I feel when it gets to me. Now I'm trying to force it out because it's like, oh my God, I had all this time in the day now, this little allotment of time, and now I can't really get it. So now it becomes like a force and I can't get it going. But then something like that will happen, something inspirational will happen and I can be able to think it, or even the days when it just flows. And those are the days where I'll be up all night because it'll come, it'll flow. I'll be able to really get into the writing the way I want to. And like I said, that's probably been the biggest thing I've missed about not being in a newsroom and not being in that situation because, there's a structure to, writing newspapers and writing stories for newspapers and stuff like that. You're doing it every day. I got to the point where I was writing, I'm writing 3 stories a day, 4 stories a day when you're writing something new. And all the stories, they're not hard-hitting news stories where it's like, oh, Timmy fell down a well. It's like, one of the best stories I remember writing was there was a fire at this family's house in Wilkett. And what happened was the mom had left. The fire started in the attic. Her son, football player at Wilkett High, fresh off of knee surgery, was fresh off of knee surgery 12 hours earlier, on meds, knocked out on the couch. Cars driving by, it ends up being the mayor of Wilkett. He's a former volunteer fireman. He's the mayor of Wilkett, driving by, sees the smoke billowing out of the house. He's like, I don't know if anybody's in there, but let me go check. So he runs up the stairs, knocking on the door, kind of gets the door open. Hey, is anybody up there? Yells upstairs. Wow. The kid wakes up, again, still in a daze, and is like, yeah, I'm up here. And he's like, you got to get out of the house. House is on fire. The kid is like, I just got surgery on my knee. I can't move. Guy had to run upstairs. Him and another passerby came. They literally put the kid like around their shoulders and hopped him down the stairs and out the house from the fire.
Wow.
And writing that story, and that's one that I always remember, but writing that story was so much, for lack of a better term, fun, because everyone was safe. That's always everyone was safe. Everyone
That's
was
always
healthy.
good.
But two, because think of that image. Like I
Yeah.
see it in my head. Think of the image of like you're just driving down the street. Next
totally
thing you
a
know,
movie.
Exactly. Next thing you know, stuff was coming out of how, and like it was such a weird like coincidence that he happened to be driving down the street at that exact time when this is happening. Not every person would have stopped.
Yeah.
Not every person would have thought, "Hey, is somebody in the house?"
Not every person would have also been former volunteer firefighter.
That's why he stopped and said, "I wonder if everyone's out of the house."
Yeah. Wow.
And so writing that story and being able to paint such a vivid picture of, you know, the kids laying on the couch, like kicking down the door. We're trying to get this out. There's a moment, moments on short notice, smoke's coming out. Like creating that imagery and creating that is such important for good writers.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I read a lot of fiction, but I also read a lot of nonfiction because you get an opportunity to see how people string words together and how people make the analogies that they do. I mean, you've seen it in your own writing with your own spoken word, and just the way that it's like to create such a picture. That's always my intent, is if I can write something that someone can read and literally see it in their mind as they're going through it, then I feel like I've done my job, and I feel like I've done something that's worthwhile. And that's where I get my enthusiasm from once it's written.
What would you say for yourself and your creativity? What has been, or even like present tense, you know, presently from time to time, even what's the common, let's say, adversary to your creativity? What's the thing that inhibits you most, I guess? And it might not be a thing. It might be a reoccurring or time to time thought. You know, sometimes it's a physical thing or a circumstance that pops up every now and then. Sometimes it's a thought. I'd say for me, while you meditate on it for a bit, for me, I find more than not, it's me worrying if the people I care about and the things I care about most around me, to what degree, or if at all, if they're being negatively impacted by how driven or how much I'm chasing after my passion. Like, am I
collateral damage?
Am I leaving someone out as a result of how laser beam focused I'm after pursuing this?
Yeah.
And so with me, like, it's slightly a bit more nuanced. With me, you know, having a wife and kids, right? Like, you know, that always makes things a bit more interesting. They're a blessing. They're great. You know, I love all of my children. And now with me having us expecting another one, right?
Oh, congratulations.
So that'll be like number 5, kid number 5. Be a fence, Lord. But, you know, so what's even taken me, what I would say, this amount of years before getting to a point where I could like 100% bet on myself and go, you know what, I'll take the leap from pushing a 9 to 5 and trying to juggle both. I'm going to try to give this vision 100% and see what happens. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah.
Right? Because for 20 plus years, I've given the 9 to 5 an opportunity to see where that goes.
Yeah.
Right? And I've seen it go some great places. You know, I've you know, been able to say I've worked a 6-figure job for multiple years. I could say that, right? You know, not many people could say that. So it was nice for a bit, right? But I also remember being very royally miserable making that 6 figures. Spending many nights sobbing and like literally crying because of the spiritual suicide happening on the inside. Right? So for me, it's so like the irony is like something that movie makers love or live for, right? It's like the very thing that present day can sometimes be this adversary, like me worrying about how much could I be harming, or if I'm harming or tending to properly the wife, the kids. In times past, it's been the exact same thing or people that I've thought of to say, hey, that's why I need to stop the spiritual suicide, because if the spirit is depressed, sad, or dead, those people I care about don't get to enjoy the real me at all. You know, like, right? Like how great of a husband could I be that's spiritually dead or depressed? How great or happy or enjoyable of a dad can I be?
Yeah, you can't fabricate that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's this kind of toggle back and forth. Like, the wife and the children become at times the motivator, the thing to say, nah, keep going, keep going. The spirit must be made and kept whole. Keep going. And then the same wife and kids could be the thing that make me go and pause for a second and like go, I don't know. Let me
Gives you that moment
let me
of
reassess.
hesitation.
Let me reassess real quick. Let me just make sure I'm tapped in still. I still have my ear to the ground in the house. I'm aware, I'm present. What's the thing, if at all, for you? Like that can be the adversary to the creativity, the passion, the vision. Like,
I'll be honest, when you first posed that, I was like, it wouldn't be perfectionism because I'm not a perfectionist in that way. I think for me, it's a level of confidence. I think confidence from the sake of...
You mean like vacillating between being confident or degree of confident more than another time?
Yeah, basically. Like, I always laugh because I never, and I'll be honest with you, I for a long time never thought of myself as even a good writer. And that's where I'm saying the confidence starts to, and for years it was tough for me to even take that. I mean, I've had ideas to write stories and books since I was in high school.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't have the confidence to either write them or even if I did show anyone or feel like, I felt like for a long time my identity was surrounded around, the athlete, surrounded around the kid that needed to go to college, surrounded around, the big brother, that kind of thing. And
sounds like as a kid you had the people around that like were at least telling you were a good writer.
Didn't mean I believe them.
Yeah. So what would usually, especially when you're young, right?
Yeah.
There's some moment or like, point in time you could point to and go, it was this teacher who said this, or my dad or parent put this seed in my, and that's where the lack of confidence or challenging my confidence came or stemmed from that.
See,
like,
it's funny. I can't pin when the lack of confidence came in. It's one of those weird things where, and I mean, I've dealt with this for a long. I've had like anxiety issues stuff for my whole life, but part of it for me when I start writing kind of alleviates that, and then when I finish, it comes flooding back. It was just like, are you sure that was that good? I don't know if that was that good. You gotta like, and so it's crazy the doubt that can start to seep in when I'm doing my writing, and I think that has been a hindrance in the past where, I'll give you this example. Last year when I was laid off, that was when I had the most time to really dive into writing. I remember being like, okay, that's when I made the decision. I don't know when I'm going to do it, but I'm writing this book. That was like, I'm starting this book. I'm starting the concept. Yep. I'm going for it. And I mean, I wasn't doing anything else. I had all the time in the world. And so I said, all right, let me go for it. And I really enjoyed what I was doing. I was staying up. I was writing stories. I was creating this, doing world building, which is like, to be honest, one of my favorite parts of the process of writing is world building, because you get to just let your imagination run. You get to really tap in and do what you got to do. And I love that part of it. And then it got to a point where there was on Twitter, I've been following a bunch of authors over the last like year and a half. And one of the authors was putting together this anthology series. And part of the anthology series was to highlight young up-and-coming writers. specifically young Black up and coming writers that are writing for, because I like I said, I like to write stories that will appease to like my younger self. Like when I was 13, when I picked this book up.
Yes.
And so that was the audience. And I remember writing this cool story of like this kid who was like, he had like this little robot, and they were on like this. They were basically like, think of Guardians of the Galaxy, the first movie, when dude first showed up on the planet, he was like dancing and everything. Okay. It was like that with a kid and a robot. He wasn't dancing, but like there were 3 tiers of setting everything up. Like the first tier, he had to get past this obstacle of like robots. The second tier, he had to get past this obstacle of like lava. The third tier, he had to get past this obstacle of like this giant statue that was like gonna stop him and everything, all to get this prize.
Just keep in mind, all story details become property of the Free Lunch Podcast show.
There it is. I appreciate that entirely. Do not bite this. So at the very end, because the whole premise of even the contest was to show something that not only is unique, but something that will be engaging. So after the kid goes through all of this, and I mean the kid's like 12 or 13, goes through all of this. No, it was younger. The kid was like maybe like 7 or 8. Yeah. Goes through all of this. The statue catches him. Yeah. And when the statue catches him, it snaps. It's not a statue, it's his mom. And the treasure wasn't a treasure. It was him trying to get something out the cookie jar. And all the steps that he got to before them was the robots, was him trying to duck past his sister on the phone and knowing she was on a call. The lava was him trying to jump on the couch while his dad was asleep trying to get to the cookie jar.
That's so dope.
The little robot was his pet dog. Like I had this.
So did you complete that?
I completed it and I didn't submit it.
Oh my
dude, that's
why? Was that the confidence thing?
The confidence
Come
thing.
on.
Dude, and I didn't submit it.
Did you even like let any other writers know about it?
I let a couple people read it. I felt
what was their feedback?
They really liked it. But it comes back around. It comes back around. I was kicking myself for the longest time for not submitting that because I said, dude, come on. Like the same thing you're saying to me. That's how I was looking. Yeah. And I said, look, it's got to get to a point where you can't be scared. It's got to get to a point where you have confidence that you
or
can
you just do it
this.
Scared, man.
Like, and or just do it scared.
Do it scared.
And
man.
So I like I said, I really remember kicking myself for a couple months over that. And then another author came up with another contest and another anthology series.
Yes.
And I said, you know what? It was a short story anthology series. And I said, you know what? I'm doing this. I was like, I don't care what I got to do for work, because I was working. I said, I don't care what I got to do for work. I don't care what I am doing this because I would not be able to look at myself if I couldn't. And I wrote another short story. It wasn't the same kind of short story. It was a different one, a little bit more fantasy driven, because that was where the contest was going. And it followed like a kid in the Bronx. That's part of it. That's really where I want to finish the full book with remember I was talking about the fire escape. Yeah. Kid in the Bronx. He's a part of like this secret society that takes care of like the city and everything from like evil monsters, all that stuff.
And this is the new competition.
This is the new competition. Yeah, exactly. And so, and like the whole point is that he just got his powers. He can't control his powers. Yeah. And it's that whole dynamic of, I'm the young kid. I'm like trying to be fly and cool, but I'm also really clumsy because I'm like almost burning down the house because I can't control these powers, on top of the fact that I'm doing. And so I painted this whole picture of, him at the bar. His grandfather owns a barbershop. He's at the barbershop sweeping up hair, talking and chatting up with the dialogue and having everything there. And then like his long lost brother comes home because his brother's been on train. Like I had everything.
But you finished this.
Finished it.
And you submitted it.
Yes.
What did that feel like in that moment? Hitting the submit button with the mouse.
It was so funny because when I hit the mouse and it submitted and it said, "Thank you for your submission." Yes. I remember leaning back and just being like, dude, just good job. Literally,
because that's the win.
Yeah, and that was
with the having the hurdle for you be the confidence piece, right? I think that's important for so many other writers or listeners out there right now to this podcast. If you're listening, that has to be the win. Like how people say celebrate the small wins. Because that's a win, right? Like, okay, of course, obviously, we'd like to like win the competition, get the grand prize, whatever all that is, right? But if you never submit, the grant prize, any that stuff you are guaranteed to never have.
Exactly.
Like there's a 100%. You could be guaranteed you won't win a thing if you don't submit. Submitting should be celebrated. Is that I've toiled, I've done the work, I've gotten this far, and I dared to let it leave my hands and put it through. Because let's face it, it becomes a numbers game with a lot of these creative spaces, whether it's if you're a music artist, submitting your music to hundreds of radio stations, right? Like, out of 1,000, you might be lucky to get one.
Exactly.
Right? But it's a numbers game, okay? Out of hundreds of submissions or competitions, you submit your writing. You might get one email back response. And a lot of those submissions, because I've applied to them, they'll tell you right in your submission, notice that you get after you click submit, they'll tell you, due to overwhelming number of submissions, everyone won't get a response.
Exactly.
You'll get a response if we select you. I remember I submitted a piece, a poem for The New Yorker.
Oh, nice.
By far, like one of the
Everest.
hugest. What was I thinking? The nerve of me, the audacity. Who are you? I submitted this thing, and it was during the pandemic. No, it was just before, I think. And so then the pandemic occurs. It's supposed to be like a 3-month like decision turnaround. Like if you and they use some process. I forget the name, but it's like a widely used platform type of controlling submissions that multiple publications use.
Got you.
I forget the name though, but you submit it. And when you submit,
Qualtrics?
No.
No.
But when you submit it, you can go back and log into this website or platform or whatever and see if the publication you submitted it to opened it or read it yet.
Got it.
Okay. So 3 months goes by, they haven't even looked at it. 6 months go by, haven't even looked at it. 9 months, haven't even looked at it.
Yeah.
Gets past 9 months, somewhere between there and a year. And then I finally get the response, no, thank you. I was so excited because I've had so many of those other opportunities where you don't even get a response. I was so excited to get the response from the New Yorker.
Yeah, exactly.
My return email after getting a rejection was so filled with gaiety and exuberance. You would have thought I could just imagine the person on the other side getting my email after they rejected me going, I think this guy might be confused. Maybe he thought we picked his piece.
Let's try this again. Dear sir, no.
We said no. I don't know if you got that. But that was me celebrating the win. First, just getting over to have the gall to even submit, right? And then, feeling like at least like you guys respected me as a writer to just give me a response.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like read it, open it, and respond. I was able to celebrate that for me. You know what I mean? And that, I think, is what helps push the needle further in the direction of your confidence a little more each time. It's like you give yourself a chance to bask in that small win to be like, that's right, man. I submitted that thing, man.
And that's literally was like me. I was just, once I hit submit on that, it was a moment for me to like look back on the time when I didn't and feel like, you know what? You didn't do it then, but you did this time. You might have exactly.
Yeah.
It was a growth moment for me where I really sat back, and that was, I'm not gonna say the first time where I felt like I was a good writer, but like that was one of the times where I sat back and I said, you know what, you did your thing on that. Yeah. Regardless of how they look at it, regardless if you hear any, like you say, regardless if you hear anything back or not, you submitted that, and that is something that they'll never be able to take away. You took the leap of faith. You put yourself out there. You understood that, this is something that I like. Confidence with something like this is something I struggle with, and it's like, you know what? It's not something you struggle with because you're not good at it. Yeah, it's something you struggle with because you're in your own head. Yeah, and that's basically what it was. I was in my own head about it. Yeah, and so. Because I'd never done anything like that before, and I was just like, oh, I don't think this is that good. Oh my God, look at all the people. And so you start to psych yourself out, and that's truly what happened to me. I psyched myself out. Yeah. And so it became a mental thing for me once I got back, and it got so to the point where I forgot of how much I even enjoyed writing it. Like they got to that point.
Yeah.
And so for the second time around, not only was I determined to be like, yo, I'm going to do this, I'm going to finish it, I'm going to send it. I loved every moment of it.
Yeah.
I got to the point where I was just like, oh, this is flowing. He's going to jump off of this.
Yeah, yeah.
And now they're going to be in the subway and I'll fight. The light's going to shut out. Now
Now,
they're
did you,
ambushed.
while you were along the way writing it,
Mm-hmm.
were you sharing pieces with people along the way, or not till you were done?
No, not till I was done. I
Okay.
finished. My girlfriend,
Or at least with a
my girlfriend, I saw
loose
it along
draft
the
of
way.
some kind.
Yeah, she
Okay.
saw the loose drafts along the way.
Okay.
My family saw, like my siblings, they saw the final draft. Like,
Is that like, because with me, I'm really, I'm also like an artist. Like I sketch, draw, do a little graffiti. I'm always like finicky about that part. Like someone seeing something if I'm not finished.
yeah.
Is that like a thing for you? Like, do you like obsess over that? Like, so even if you're not like maybe seeking someone out to show, but like if someone knows you're working on something and they just want to see, so they like kind of come to you and like, hey, can I see what you're working on? Like, how are you with that? Like, are you like open to like, sure, here, take a look.
I'm very open with it, and it's funny. I'm not open to
Really?
yeah, and
for somebody that actually
no, but you want to know why I'm open?
time to time deals with confidence, you're like, here, sure.
Because it's not a matter of confidence there. It's a matter, and this is where my professional life will slip into my regular because in my professional field, whether it was working in a newsroom for journalism or even just now for public relations, people gut your stuff left and right when it comes to writing. They really, truly, oh God, especially in newsrooms, you can forget. One of my old journalism teachers one of my old journalism teachers used to always say, to do this job, you got to wear brass pants because you're going to get kicked in the rear end a lot. That's literally what he said.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where I've had things that I've worked on in the moment and even afterwards get absolutely ripped to shreds by editors. And so that portion I'm cool with. I'm like, all right, cool, here, take it. If you got to edit something, edit something. I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, I know I got to bring it back anyway. But then when it's something that's done or finished, or even something that's me as possible because it's something I created and so it's me, it becomes such a hesitancy to send it off more so to let my loved ones read it. Because I know that my loved ones are going to read it and, Aaron, that was nice, Aaron, that was good, or edit it up or cut it up or whatever it's going to be. But when I have to actually take that next step to be like, all right, this is the real shebang. I'm in the big leagues now. That is where I
that's
hesitate.
already, to me, like, is a huge, chunk of bravery as a writer. Like, to be comfortable with just handing something that you spent a significant amount of time in and have editors or even like professionally. Like, so you didn't say it's just you're comfortable with that with family or friends. Like you're used to that at work and like you're okay with that. Like I would like to suggest you're probably more brave of a writer than you think and give yourself credit. Like you... Honestly, because I think if anybody heard you say, from time to time, I struggle with, confidence in my writing, and that was it. Yeah. No one would ever think the same person that said that is comfortable with handing someone their writing that they've worked hard on. So for somebody to like rip half of it apart and be like, that's trash, start again. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's really, really dope of an ability for you to do that, to be able to take very constructive, sometimes brutal criticism with your writing and keep writing, and do it again. Yeah. You know what I mean? Knowing the same thing can happen again. That's brave.
No, but I was gonna say, I think that's also part of where, and I'm, you're just kind of spitballing here, and I'm thinking this as we're going. I think that's almost like where like even some of the hints of like confidence will come in sometimes, because it'll be like, I send it to them. I'm used to this part. I'm used to this part, getting it back. I'm used to reading it.
Okay.
But then when it's like, all right, that was bad. This is that.
I won't get it back maybe if I do this and I submit it this way.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's part.
I think that's it. That's the part. You're not getting it back to see where.
Where the error. Yeah. Because I like being able to make second half adjustments. I call it second half adjustments. I need second half.
So
adjustments.
once it leaves your hand or goes to a submission, it's almost like, I'll never know. It's like the unknown is actually the thing I have to be brave for.
Yeah,
It's
and
the unknown.
No, and that's actually that's man, that was good.
Yeah.
No, because I think
As
that's
I'm
truly
thinking,
what
like, that's it.
That's truly what it is. Because I'm so, like I said, I'm so used to doing something, getting it back, getting it. Whether, I said I've had editors really edit hard, where it's just completely cut up, and then you make the adjustments where needed, and then you go from there, and then that's the final product once it's gone. I think that first round, knowing I'm not going to get it back, can be a little hard for me, for the simple fact that it's like, if I get this back, I got you this next time, because I'll be able to make this edits, and I saw what a vision was, and I can go from there. So I think that I think that is probably where it is, and I mean, and even that's a nail on the head.
Even like worded differently, like as I'm thinking about it, I think it's like with the editing process and like giving it and getting it back, right? That exchange speaks to the part of you that says, look, I'm confident in that exchange that I can become whatever writer you need. I'm that good of a writer. I can become any writer you need. But when I do it and send it off as a submission for a contest or a publication, and I don't get it back, and I don't get selected, or I don't win the competition or whatever, the lack of confidence exists in that area of now it won't be about, can I become the writer you want or the writer you need? I now have to navigate the space of being confident in the writer I am.
Mm-hmm.
I write like this.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, exactly.
This is who I am.
Exactly.
When I'm doing my job, my 9 to 5, day to day, I'm an employee. I am here to write and be the writer you want and you need. But when I'm submitting to publications or I'm doing my thing on the side or here, I have to be confident in the writer I am.
Exactly.
And my writing is going to be either what you're looking for or it won't be. Like many places that I've gone and performed at, early on when I started doing the spoken word, I had like my first ever YouTube video where I like uploaded it. I remember the first comment, the first YouTube comment on the video was, "This is not of God. You have the spirit of Cain."
Ooh.
It was so brutal.
Yeah, no.
I was like, did you not listen to the actual words? Like how could, and they were like so caught up on like what I was wearing. They were like, why are you wearing dark colors? Like I had a black Yankees hat on and like my black hoodie in the video. And it was just like a, almost like just headshot crop video. Like, so, you only saw from my waist up. And after I got over that very difficult hump, because this is like I'm a noob, so criticism is very, very meaningful early on when you're trying to like, learn to walk in this thing, right? And I remember once I got over that hump, what I started to do as kind of like a preface to my performances at different, whether it was churches or, events, I would always get on the mic and say, hey, as like, Christians, guys, how they say, we're called to be like fishers of men. And I'm like, well, if you've ever gone fishing for real, all fishermen know that there's different type of fish. There's freshwater fish, there's saltwater fish. And because there's different kind of fish, that's why we have literally hundreds and different kinds of bait. All right. So just like a real fisherman, if I'm here to be a fisher of men, I'm here to stand before you guys with my gift and talent in the way that God has given it to me to package it, right? To go fishing, air quotes. Liking it to real fishermen. If the bait that I have on my hook isn't to your liking, then maybe you're just not the fish I'm going fishing for.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so I had to walk in that confidence, like how I said with you as the writer, of this is the writer I am over here in the submission in the contest space. And me growing confident more and more in that.
Yeah.
When I'm at the workplace, I'm here to be the writer you need.
Yeah.
So now I subject myself to that and I'm open, I'm very confident in that space. But yeah, man,
I could tell, like, and this is one of the things that, I mean, coming into the conversation that I knew he was going to kind of chop it up about, because I was like, I feel like I'm about to give Frii something he ain't really expected.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's really interesting for me to be able to have these kind of conversations, especially when it comes to the creative space for me, because I don't live in that space as much as I want to, and I want to change that.
Yeah.
And the part of me that wants to change that is also the part of me that understands that, like, you know, you struggle with confidence here, but you still enjoy doing it. And that's why I keep doing it, because I love doing it, because I feel better when I do it, because it's something that, going back to what you're saying, it feeds the soul. Like, I never sleep better than when I do after I write something. I'm dead serious. Like, when I'm able to get some inspiration, and I mean, I've had, you know, dreams that come up where I'm just like, I wake up and I'm like, nope, gotta hit it. Or like, if I'm just like riding through, a lot of my writing ideas come when I'm driving, because, you know, you kind of just like, you're driving, you shut the brain off a little bit while you kind of just doing your thing. And that actually explains why people in New Haven drive so well. But seriously, it's so funny to be able to just sit there and just really kind of just zone and just listen. And I mean, I've seen birds fly by, and I know it's corny, but I've seen birds fly by, and I'm like, all right, now if I made that bird bigger, gave it a tail, would it look like a phoenix? Maybe make it blue. Maybe I could put that in, and that's how my mind naturally works, because of the way that my imagination has continued to grow and everything over the years. And now, when I'm doing the creative part, when I'm actually sitting down in front of that screen or with my pen and paper and I'm writing something down, or I'm jotting notes, or I'm on my phone, it really becomes a safe space for me. And once I have to, you know, give that submission, that's where the safe space and the control leaves me a little bit, because then it becomes something that I'm not just confident in. It becomes something that I don't just do for enjoyment. Something that I'm doing for enjoyment that I can, you know, move on forward with.
And you don't get to, like, you know, when it comes to releasing or submitting your work, whether you're a writer or artist, you know, like I said, if you're somebody, like, you know, listening to this episode and like you've submitted things before, you know this, that's both like the inherent beauty that's built into the artist who dares to take what's in their mind and put it on any paper.
Absolutely.
Whether it's writing words on a paper or putting a beautiful painting or portrait on a paper, right? Is that as long as I possess it and I alone, I become the sole interpreter of its meaning.
Mm-hmm.
The minute I put it in a gallery, the minute I submit it through an email, I am not there to tell the other person on the other side what it means, what it symbolizes. It's totally open for that person who's consuming my art and my creativeness. It's totally open to their, you know, subjective interpretation. And that's what's really vulnerable about being an artist.
Exactly.
Who dares to want to share it, at least. Mm-hmm. You could be a closet artist and you don't have that vulnerability.
Exactly.
Right? No one knows you're a writer. No one knows you actually, you know, paint or do art. But yeah, that's the thing that you have to, you know, for sure, embrace. It's the beautiful nightmare of several. You know, I've mentioned on this show, there's several beautiful nightmares. I love that phrase, because I find that it shows its face in so many different facets of life. You know, there's a beautiful nightmare. But yeah, that's what I think makes art, as, you know, an overall thing, you know, whether it's writing, painting, you know, visual art, drama, theater, right? Everybody gets to draw their own conclusion, their own interpretation.
And there's beauty in that.
And that's
there's
beautiful.
So much beauty in that.
It's the beautiful vulnerability, beautiful nightmare, man. And I hope it's that, you know, it's nothing that, you know, inhibits any of you other guys out there and gals, you know, who are creatives yourselves, who are daring to be more creative and daring to put your stuff out there even more. You know, my prayer for you is that you continue to be confident in the artist you are, in the creative that you are, and know that when you're creating anything, you're creating it just the way you meant it to be. That it's who you are. It's like a fingerprint, right? Like, you know, if we were to put so much weight on the people who are on the other side of many of these submissions and things we submit our creative, you know, art to, if we were to put ourselves in their position and say, hey, here's my thumbprint, and then submit it to them, right? And then they go, no, that's not your thumbprint, right? Like, how silly, ridiculous would that be, right? That's the same way we need to view our creative process, our art that we make. This is it. This is who I am. Mm-hmm. Okay? if someone rejects that and go, hey, that's not for them, then it's not for them. It's like the fish, right?
Yeah.
Hey, you're just not the fish that I'm baiting for then.
Exactly.
There's someone out there who's looking for exactly what I am creating. Like, I mean, because I see it all the time. I either see whether it's famous multi-million dollar sold paintings, artwork, and I look at that and I go, that's trash. That's actually worth $1 million. Or I look at a book or story, like, and I go, that's trash.
Yeah.
But someone, it was amazing for someone or a many of someone's, of many people that was able to make it valuable as it was. So for someone, out there, Aaron, everything you're making, man, is right up their alley. It's exactly what they've been looking for. And they're going to cross paths with you and go, where have you been all my life?
I'm going to be sitting here and be I was talking with Frii for a little while. Then, I got out of work. And so, no, but the truth of the matter is everything you said is completely right. And I think having an opportunity to even just sit here and chat it up with you and chop it up with you and talk about just this whole experience, it is something that is not only, like I said before, beautiful, but it's something that makes me me. Like I said, I've been writing for such a long time. I've written everything from short stories to working on a novel to, writing even like a comic book series for a little while, and just doing all of that fantasy writing for such a long time because it's something that I do enjoy doing for me. But then allowing myself to have, like you said, that confidence, allow myself to sit back and say, you know what? There's somebody out there that's going to be able to look at this and see you. Because that's what you're putting on the table. That's really it. That's what you're putting on the table. You're putting yourself on the table.
Yes.
So being somebody that can sit back and say, that's you. So that, and I actually have to say, when you were talking about the way people interpret and you're not there to interpret, the first thing I thought of was, oh, you mean like when you put a period instead of a comma in the script? That was the first thing that came to my mind.
Yes, exactly. Some good times sending back his paper and script to him. Like, hey, you need to fix this, Aaron. No, but it was, oh my gosh, man. I wish I was able to have a hidden camera on the wall there or someone just to show people. It was like really, really probably one of the dopest, writing, what I would call, I mean, it's actually kind of weird in a way to term it that way, but, writing collaborations, you could say. I wasn't doing any real writing, but, the really cool, or what I thought was really cool job for Aaron was to actually write a script that was tailored more or less to the type of orator that I was. That's a very unique skill set. That's a very unique ability because essentially you have to put your writing style kind of to the side and now think of the recipient.
Yeah.
The person who's going to be narrating this and saying these words, what kind of voice are they? And that is what was like taking me back because I was almost having like this kind of, experience standing on the outside of me looking at this picture of us two and going, he has me freaking nailed. And I was like, because there were many parts that I would read it and felt like, this looks like something I wrote. This is how I would have written this part. That was like so crazy to me.
It was funny, and I told you this at the time. I was like, I watched one of your performances, and I got it. I don't want to gas my, but it was that. I watched
gas
one.
Away, sir. Listen, guys. I am telling you, this guy, he was hitting the nail on the head. It was like as if I wrote it.
I watched one of your performances. I was like, all right, cool. I got it. I knew where we wanted to go with the podcast, and I sat back and I have a little, everybody has little ticks and stuff they do before, so I do one of these. I actually like act like I'm about to crack my hands like I'm in a cartoon. I go like, all right, let's get to work, and I sat down and I just was like, all right, based off of, because the biggest thing for me with you was your cadence and the way that you switch it up from time to time depending on the words that you're saying and the direction that you're going and the amount of enunciation and the way that you play off of that. So when I heard it the first time, I was just like, all right, cool, got it. So then when I was writing up to, and the amount of times where I would write a line and be like, I would say it out loud And then I would actually, and this is funny, I never told you this, I would say it out loud like it was your voice. And I would be like, nope, 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 nope. And I'd be like, yep, 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 yep.
Oh my God.
So that's where the process really went into. And that was such a unique process for me because that was really the first time I've done something.
That's what I was
like
about to ask you. Have you had to do that before?
No, that was really like the first time any other script I've ever done for a podcast was either one I was also on myself, where I could, like, if I had someone else, I kind of coached them, like, hey, we're going to do it like this, and produced it that way. Or if I was just doing some fiction writing on the side, it's mine. So I just, do how I want to go. But for this, understanding that I was writing this, going to someone else that was going to have to make the performance, a couple things came to my mind, but really the main things were, one, I want to be able to write something that's going to showcase the skills and the talent that this person has. That was the first thing that came to mind. And the second thing, because the skills are there, the talent is there. So as long as they got the right words, they're gonna elevate everything that I do.
Yeah.
And the other thing was just to make sure that you put them in the best position to be able to let that talent show. So being able to give them the stuff so they can just go, but then also being able to put them in the best position so they don't have to. And that's why I really liked when we had our opportunity to just kind of sit down and go through it one time. Take out the periods and put comments. Like that was. And I know we joke about it, but that was truly something where I was like, I put those periods in there for me because I knew I was like, all right, the way he speaks is gonna go boom, and then boom, and then boom, and then boom, and then do.
Yeah.
And so that cadence really came in that way. So that was really the process behind that. And that was the first time I ever did it, but I'm glad it came out so
super dope.
I'm really glad it came out well.
I'm ready for the next opportunity, man, for sure.
Oh yeah, that's it. We're gonna have something there.
Yeah, we got to, man. While we get ready to wrap up, I'm gonna leave you with the free food for the soul to give and offer to people today, man. Again, you guys know this is the Free Lunch Podcast. We want to leave you with something edifying for your soul. So, Aaron, given everything that we've gone over, talked about, chopped it up today, wow, man, whether it's like navigating balance of the vocational workspace and the dream, the vision, navigating what's the hurdles to you guys out there, when it comes to your passion or your vision or creativity, all the way down to like being confident, knowing that you are uniquely created to be only the creator you can be. There's no other like you, like being in that confidence. Like what's the takeaway? What's the one-liner, the punchline you could say for the people, man, that you want them to take away today?
Wow, one line as long-winded as I am? I think for me, your passion is your fire. Your passion is your North Star. That's how I look at it, because as long as you follow your passion, and this is something that I'm even getting when we were talking, everything else is going to fall into place. The confidence is going to fall into place because you're following what you love to do. The fear is going to go away because you're loving what you're doing feels right. The passion you have behind it feels right. So I think the fear is going to go away there. And I think overall, love what you do and everything else will fall into place as well. So your passion is key. Your passion is your North Star. That would be, if you're going to put me on a one-liner, you the wordsmith. Yeah. I'm the typist smith, but that's what I would go with.
He said you're the wordsmith. I'm the editor.
Exactly. With the laugh too. That's exactly how it would go.
I love it. Well, you know what? I'll leave you guys with this. And this was something that just came to me, man. And God gave to me a while back. If you feel fear and anxiety rising, it does not mean success is far away. It means success is upon you. Yo, it's Freestyle Gospel, the real free. It's free lunch, free food for your soul, y'all. Peace.